Dad told me to sleep in the cold garage because the guest room is for real family. I packed my bags and left. A week later he was begging me to come back after. I stood in front of the door for longer than I should have. The cold wind cut through my jacket, but I couldn't bring myself to knock. Not right away. This wasn't just any door, it was my dad's. The same man who'd stopped being a real father to me somewhere around my 12th birthday, shortly after the divorce and long before he married Lynn, his new wife with the perfect smile and her perfect son, Connor. Still, I knocked. I didn't have much choice. I had lost my job 2 months ago. My savings dried up like water in the desert, and my apartment lease had run out just days earlier. With nowhere to go and pride already swallowed, I came here. The door opened to reveal Dad, looking older than I remembered, but still sharp around the edges. He blinked, surprised. "Jeremy," he said, as if my name tasted strange in his mouth. "Hey, Dad," I muttered, trying to sound casual. I was hoping maybe I could stay here for a little while. Just until I get back on my feet." He didn't say anything for a second. Just looked me up and down like I was someone asking for spare change instead of his own son. Finally, he stepped back. "Well, come in. Lynn's out with Connor, but yeah, we'll figure something out." That was the first sign of trouble. Not a hug. Not a, "We've missed you." Just, "We'll figure something out." I followed him inside, and the house smelled like cinnamon and clean floors, the kind of fake warmth that comes from scented candles, not people. He showed me around like I was a visitor. Like I didn't already know this place from the few awkward holiday visits I'd endured over the past few years. And when we reached the hallway with the guest room, he paused. "I should probably mention," he said, clearing his throat. "Connor's staying in the guest room. He's had a rough semester, needed a break from school. So that's taken." "Oh," I said, trying not to sound surprised. "So where would I?" He scratched the back of his neck and then gestured toward the side door. "You can take the garage. It's not ideal, but it's cleanish. Plenty of space." I blinked. "The garage? You mean where you keep the lawn mower and the old fridge?" "Well, yeah. Just temporarily," he said. "I mean, come on, Jeremy. The guest room's for family." I stared at him. "I am family." He shrugged. "You know what I mean. Real family. This is Connor's home now." "Real family?" I didn't say anything after that. I just walked out to the garage like a guest in someone else's life. Cold concrete, boxes stacked to the ceiling, and an old blanket tossed over a mattress that probably hadn't been used since before the recession. I sat on the edge of it, staring at the oil stains on the floor, thinking about how far I'd fallen. And that's when I made the decision. No yelling. No begging. No tears. Just enough. That night, while they were laughing inside over dinner I wasn't invited to, I packed my bag again. One duffel, half-zipped, and my dignity zipped all the way shut. I left without a word. Not even a note. I walked down the driveway with frost biting at my ears and the echo of their laughter still in my head. Connor had always laughed like that, too loud, like everything was a joke he was in on and you weren't. I remembered sitting across the table from him one Thanksgiving, watching as he mimicked my voice to get a few cheap laughs out of the table. My dad had chuckled then too, like it was all in good fun. Like I wasn't sitting right there. I didn't look back at the house as I walked away. It wasn't mine. It never had been. I didn't have a plan. My phone battery was dying and my pride was already dead, but I had one thing I hadn't felt in a while: clarity. I was done asking for love I was never going to get. I was done hoping that one day Dad might finally choose me. I crashed on a friend's couch that night. Nate. A guy I hadn't seen since community college, but who answered the phone like we just talked yesterday. "Yeah, man. Come by. I got space. Couch folds out, and there's beer in the fridge." And just like that I had more warmth from a friend I hadn't seen in 5 years than I did from my own father. The next morning, I was up before the sun. Maybe it was the stiff couch, or the old ceiling fan wobbling above my head, but something inside me had shifted. I borrowed Nate's laptop and started browsing odd jobs. Anything. Delivery, hauling junk, furniture assembly. I didn't care what it was, I just needed to move. I picked up a few gigs that same day. $20 here. 35 there. Small wins. And weirdly, I started feeling good. Not because I was making much, but because I was doing it on my own. No more waiting for scraps at my dad's table. Within a few days, I found myself on a roll. Waking up early, knocking out job after job, building a little cash pile in an envelope Nate taped to the fridge. Your hustle jar, he called it. One night over pizza, he asked me, "You ever think about doing something bigger with this?" "With what?" I said, wiping grease off my hands. "I dunno," he shrugged. "You're good with people. You hustle. You ever think about starting something? A service? A side gig that's actually yours?" And just like that, a switch flipped. I started making plans. That was the night I really left the garage, not just physically, but mentally. I was rebuilding something. Not just my bank account, but myself. And I hadn't even hit the best part yet. Because that's when the calls started. It started with a missed call from a number I didn't recognize. Then another. And another. I was elbow deep in the back of a busted washing machine I was fixing for $70 when my phone buzzed again. Dad. I didn't pick up. Not right away. Just stared at the screen while it vibrated in my hand, like it was trying to shake me into the past. I let it ring out. Then came the voicemails. "Hey, Jeremy. Call me back when you can." 5 minutes later. "It's your dad. Something happened. Just give me a call." I still didn't answer. My hands were covered in machine grease and years of disappointment. I wasn't about to wipe either of them off just yet. It wasn't until the third voicemail that something changed in his voice. "Jeremy, listen, I need your help." Now that made me pause. I wiped my hands, sat down in the folding chair by the laundry room sink, and stared at the phone. There was more. 4 missed calls. Another voicemail. This one was longer. I didn't even press play. I just sat there, watching the little red icon spin like it was about to unravel everything. Then I finally gave in and listened. His voice was rushed. Anxious. Frantic. "Connor's gone. He left. Took our cards, Jeremy. All of them. My account's drained. Lynn's jewelry, her mom's bracelet, it's gone. He cleaned us out. We don't know what to do." I blinked. Waited for the punchline. There wasn't one. Another call came in. I declined it. Then the next voicemail came through like clockwork. "Please. I need you to come by. Just to talk. I didn't mean what I said about the guest room. You know I didn't mean that." But he had meant it. He meant every word when he said, "The guest room is for real family." I didn't respond. Didn't call back. Didn't text. I just went back to work, the voicemail playing again in my head like a sad little song on repeat. The panic in his voice didn't bring me any joy. No satisfaction. Just a weird stillness. Because somewhere deep down, I'd already known this was coming. Connor, the real family, the new son, was always a storm waiting to hit. And Dad? He'd built his whole life on the idea that love was conditional, that loyalty was bought with silence. That if someone smiled at him the right way, they could do no wrong. And now, the person he moved me aside for had turned his house into a crime scene. I deleted every voicemail. Blocked the number. I wasn't going back. After I blocked the number, I half expected him to show up at Nate's doorstep. But he didn't. What came instead was silence, the kind that doesn't fill a room, but echoes in your chest. A hollow sort of absence. No more buzzing phone. No more voicemails. No more pleading. Just nothing. I think he finally got it. I wasn't coming back. It wasn't about revenge. It wasn't even about what he said, though that one line, "The guest room is for real family," had etched itself into my ribs like a scar that would never quite fade. It was about who he chose to be. Again and again. When he met Lynn, I became background noise. When Connor needed something, the world stopped. When I needed a place to sleep, I was offered a concrete floor and a box of old tools. And now that his world was cracked wide open, now he remembered my name. But I didn't need him to anymore. Instead, I doubled down. Put in more hours. Signed up for bigger jobs. I started taking photos of the before and after work I was doing, furniture assembly, garage cleanouts, appliance repairs, and posted them online. Nate helped me set up a basic website and logo. Second Chance Handyman, we called it. Cheesy? Maybe. But it stuck. And people started to call. One job turned into two, two into five. I started waking up excited again, not just to work, but because I could see it happening, a real life, built with my own hands. Not one that required begging. Not one that came with conditions. Just one I owned. I moved out of Nate's place 3 weeks later. Found a small one-bedroom across town. Nothing fancy, but it had a working heater, a kitchen with enough space to cook, and a mattress that wasn't in a garage. When I signed the lease, the manager looked up and said, "Congrats, Jeremy. You're all set." And I smiled, because it had been a long time since anyone said my name like I belonged somewhere. I drove home with the windows down that night, even though it was cold. Just to feel the air in my lungs. The quiet in my bones. The peace of knowing I didn't need their approval anymore. I should have known they wouldn't let it go. A few days after I moved into my new apartment, I got a letter. Real mail. Handwritten envelope. My dad's slanted, tight handwriting across the front. No return address. I turned it over in my hands a few times before opening it. Part of me didn't want to read it. Part of me needed to. Inside was a single page. No. Dear Jeremy. No. Son. Just words. I was wrong. About everything. I thought I was protecting my home, my family, but I see now that I was just pushing away the only person who never asked for anything but a place to stand. Connor's gone. Lynn's barely talking to me. The house is empty, and so am I. You didn't deserve any of what I said. Or what I didn't say. If you can forgive me, please call. If not, I understand. Dad. I read it once. Then again. Then I folded it back up and slid it into the back of a drawer. I didn't cry. I didn't smile either. I just sat there with the letter in my lap, realizing that this was the closest thing to an apology I'd ever get from him. Not a conversation. Not a moment at the door with arms open wide. Just ink on paper, written alone in a house he had filled with the wrong people. And maybe that was the point. Some people wait until there's nothing left before they realize what they had. And by then, the person they should have cherished is already gone. I didn't call. I didn't write back. I didn't even move the letter from the drawer. Let him live in the silence he once gave me. There's a kind of grief that doesn't come with death. It comes with letting go. Of the version of someone you wanted them to be. Of the years you spent trying to earn love that should have been unconditional. Of the illusion that maybe, just maybe, if he showed up enough, they eventually would too. That grief hit me on a random Tuesday. I was sitting in my truck outside a client's house, fixing a busted porch light, when a kid ran by on the sidewalk, chasing after his dad. The dad laughed, slowed down, scooped the kid up, and spun him around like it was the most natural thing in the world. And I just sat there, watching. Not with jealousy. Not even sadness. Just realization. That I never got that version of a father. And I never would. But for once, it didn't wreck me. Because I wasn't that kid anymore. I was a man with work boots covered in sawdust, a wallet that didn't cry at the end of the month, and clients who shook my hand and said thank you like they meant it. I was making something real, not just money, but a reputation. A business. A self. Every time someone handed me cash or left a 5-star review, I felt like I was laying bricks in the foundation of a life no one else had the power to shake. I had friends now who checked in, who invited me over without needing anything. A landlord who knew my name and respected my work. I even started volunteering on Saturdays, helping with repairs at a local shelter. Just because I could. Because I had the energy now. The bitterness was gone. The weight I carried for years, the need for his approval, the ache of his absence, the hunger for a kind word, it all stayed behind in that cold garage. He could keep it. A week turned into a month. Then 2. And still, silence. No more letters. No more desperate calls from new numbers. No unexpected visits. It was like he had finally realized I wasn't bluffing. That I wasn't some sulking teenager waiting to be asked back in. I was gone. And I meant it. One morning, I stopped by the old cafe near the edge of town, the kind of place that still scribbles orders on a notepad and knows how you take your coffee by the third visit. The waitress, Melanie, slid me a mug and said, "You always look like you're thinking about something big." I smirked. Used to. Not so much anymore. That was the truth. For years, every room I sat in, I was still trying to explain myself, to be enough, to be heard, to be seen. But now I could sit in silence, and not feel like I was drowning in it. Melanie raised an eyebrow. "Well, whatever weight you dropped, you look lighter." And I did feel lighter. That day, I took a detour on my drive back from a job site. I passed by my dad's neighborhood. Not to see him, just to see what used to be. The house looked the same. But something about it felt smaller. Duller. Like it belonged to a life I no longer recognized. A few years ago, I might have parked, walked up to the door, tried again. But not this time. I didn't stop. Didn't slow down. Didn't feel anything. That chapter was closed. And I was writing a better one now. It's strange, isn't it? How quickly life can change once you stop waiting for someone else to show up. A year ago, I was sleeping in a garage. Not just cold, but invisible. Reduced to a name that didn't quite fit inside someone else's definition of real family. Now, I wake up to my own alarm in an apartment I pay for with money I earned with my hands and my time. I open my email each morning to job requests, reviews, sometimes even thank you notes from clients. Not once have I needed to ask my dad, or anyone, for help. Turns out, I was never the helpless one. I was just never seen. Funny thing is, when people actually see you, they treat you differently. Like the woman who runs the nonprofit housing group I volunteer for. She pulled me aside after a weekend project and said, "You have a gift. Ever think of training others?" And that's how the idea started. What if I didn't just fix things? What if I helped others learn to fix them too? The plan came together faster than I expected. I found a small workshop space in an old warehouse downtown. Peeling paint, leaky roof, but solid bones. Kind of like me, I guess. I signed the lease with a weird mix of nerves and certainty in my gut. I scraped together enough money for a few workbenches, basic tools, and a fresh coat of paint. Word spread quickly. Some of the guys I used to do gigs with, a few teens from the shelter who were hungry to learn something that could give them purpose. We called it the Second Chance Shop. Because that's what it was. A place for people like me, folks who'd been told they weren't enough, weren't family, weren't worth the effort. People who'd been dismissed, shoved aside, or left out in the cold. In that workshop, I watched people who never held a drill in their lives learn to build bookshelves. I watched one kid, Elijah, fix his first kitchen sink and smile like he just touched the moon. That was worth more than any apology I never got. Sometimes I'd catch my reflection in the shop window at the end of a long day, sawdust in my hair, sweat on my brow, and this quiet calm in my eyes I hadn't seen in years. The kind that comes from doing something that matters. From knowing deep down that I hadn't just survived the garage. I left it behind. And just as I was learning to build furniture, tile floors, patch drywall, I'd built something else, too. A life. And not the kind that waits for someone's permission. It was raining when the letter came. No name on the envelope this time. Just my address, written in rushed, almost shaky script. Something told me it wasn't from a client. I stood there for a while under the dripping edge of my awning, envelope softening in my hand, before I finally opened it. Inside was a photo. Old. Faded. Me and my dad at a Little League game. I couldn't have been older than 10. I had a glove too big for my hand and a smile that looked like I hadn't yet learned the shape of disappointment. Tucked behind the photo was a short note. I found this while cleaning. You always did have your own kind of strength. I just didn't see it. I hope you're doing well. Dad. That was it. No return address. No phone number. Just a photo and a flicker of something that might have been guilt. Or nostalgia. Or both. I put the picture down on the table next to my keys. I didn't throw it away, but I didn't put it in a frame either. Some memories belong in the drawer, not because they're bad, but because they're finished. There was no rage in me anymore. No bitter weight hanging on my ribs. Just clarity. He had his chances. Dozens of them. Every birthday I called and wasn't called back. Every job loss I faced alone. Every time I showed up, only to be reminded that I was temporary. Replaceable. He made his choices. So did I. I didn't write back. I didn't return the photo. And I didn't hate him either. Because hate still takes up space. It still invites someone to live rent-free in your head. And I had no more rooms left for ghosts. Around that same time, something started changing at the second chance shop. More people came in. Folks who had nothing but time and regret in their pockets. A woman named Carol, 61, recently widowed and trying to fix the fence her husband never finished. A guy named Devonte, fresh out of a halfway house, looking for a reason to stay clean. They came for the skills, sure, but they stayed for something else. Belonging. That's when I realized I wasn't just building a shop. I was building a family. Not the kind that shares blood, but the kind that shows up. They text me pictures of things they built at home. Invite me to dinners, birthdays, baby showers. We fixed each other's leaky faucets and showed up with soup when someone caught the flu. I even found myself laughing more. Sleeping better. Looking forward to Mondays. And one night, while locking up the shop, I stood under the streetlight and realized something that made me freeze in place. I wasn't waiting anymore. Not for an apology. Not for a message. Not for love that never knew how to land. I had already found what I'd been chasing all those years. It just didn't look the way I thought it would. It looked like a workshop full of sawdust and second chances. It's been a year now. The garage feels like a story someone once told me about another man's life. A version of me who still waited at doors that never opened, hoping for someone to say, "You matter." I don't wait anymore. My phone doesn't ring with his number. If it did, I wouldn't answer. Not out of anger, but because I no longer need what he couldn't give. I've built something better. Not perfect, but real. A home filled with people who show up without being asked. A business with my name on the wall. A life that's finally mine.